been a long time, and I should not have left you without some more thoughts to step to. Welcome to Professor Sky's Record Review. I'm going to be talking about Vince Staples' self-titled album, Vince Staples. Speaking of stapling and industrial things, you may hear downstairs the sound of some people working on my basement, but I want to get this video out. I want to get going. I took a vacation. It was quite nice. I went to Rhode Island. But on that vacation, I was watching my numbers for my Tyler, the Creator video just go up and up and up and up. And it turns out that's going to be my most successful music review of all time. So it's pretty nice that when I come back from my vacation, I've discovered this album by Vince Staples, which I think can be seen as sort of like a cousin. You know, not necessarily like a brother, not like a twin. Like, I wouldn't say that it goes right along with Tyler's album, but there's a lot of similarities, you know, these sort of R&B, sing-songy rappers with a very pronounced West Coast feel. Rappers who are alternative, but not alternative because like they're trying to be weird, but just by the level of thoughtfulness, which now that I've been doing this channel for a couple of years now, I actually think it's time to just accept that mainstream hip hop has become a lot more thoughtful, and so has alternative hip hop. Basically, all of hip hop has become way more reflective, way more thoughtful, and this is definitely a part of that continuing wave. I did not review his previous album. I have not listened to any Vince Staples before this. I've been vaguely aware of him, but I never really, just the name, just Vince Staples. It just didn't seem very interesting. I didn't know if it was like a joke, like about Staples, or what it was, and I just never really thought about it. But what I think is, to his credit, actually, is this kind of feeling, this sort of what you might think of as something kind of boring or bland, he actually plays into. He plays with a sort of calmness, and not like a cool calmness, like not someone who's trying to be the coolest guy in the room, but just like the guy who is the coolest guy in the room. You know what I mean? You know what that difference? You know, like he's not popping his collar, you know, the leather jacket and like trying to be the coolest guy, but he just comes across as his temperature, like his sort of spiritual temperature is very cool all the way through. The album is very simple, very effective. Sonically, it is completely cohesive, all produced by Kenny Beats. I've discovered a lot of nuances in his rapping. I've listened to the album about 4 or 5 times now. But it never feels like he's switching up flows. It never feels like he's trying to kind of blow your mind with all these things that he's trying to do. I think the album cover itself is pretty exemplary, right? It's just his face, very close up, and again, I think we could compare it a little bit to the Tyler album, whereas, you know, Tyler was sort of in this weird kind of passport card taken from far away. Here we have somebody who's right up into the frame and sort of showing you who he is. One thing that I like is that the person he's presenting here is not somebody that I feel like I've seen in other hip-hop albums. There have been a lot of confessional hip-hop albums, you know, like I did all this bad stuff and I can't believe it, and there's certainly been a lot of very emotional rap albums lately of, oh, I want to die and I think I'm going to kill myself and I have to keep drinking cough syrup or I'll die, and if I keep drinking cough syrup then I will die. This feels, in a way, sort of like coming to terms with adulthood. And I think that's the largest way that we could compare this with the Tyler, the Creator album that came out a couple weeks ago. You know, these are young guys who are no longer young guys, right? Like they're in their late 20s or early 30s. I don't even know how old Vince Staples is, but that's how old he appears to be, just from the way he feels. And it seems like they're both coming to terms with their good choices. Like coming to terms with being thoughtful and being intelligent and investing into their music as opposed to a life of crime. But a certain amount of like, almost like regret or wistfulness. You know, like when I was a young man, I thought that I wanted to be a player, you know, and really be a ladies' man, but I couldn't do it, you know. Like I could do it if I wanted to, you know, like I was a charming enough guy. But like, I didn't actually want to. But there's always this feeling in the back of my head, like, I should probably be James Bond, you know? This album kind of feels like that, where it feels like he's talking about his life and life growing up in Compton and being around gangbangers and sort of being a part of that world, but at the very outskirts, like very little bit. Like more of a witness to street life than a member of street life. And the way he's able to sing about that, maybe there's a refreshing lack of insecurity. This is something I've been talking about a fair amount with this growth of hip-hop, the emotional growth of hip-hop, is that he doesn't come across as somebody who's trying to tell you how great he is, because on the inside he feels like garbage, because that's what American culture tells most people who are not in a position of privilege, right? There's no kind of like internalized hatred or anything like that. He just seems to be fairly cool with who he is. Now, stylistically, I'm a little bit amazed that I love this album. I have had a hard time coming to terms with sing-songy rappers who sing and rap at sort of the same time, right? I mean, I grew up, and as most of my viewers know, Biz Markie is and maintains one of my favorite rappers of all time, and he did a lot of that sing-songy stuff. But there was this time, you know, in the late 90s and early 2000s with like Ja Rule and 50 Cent, where it just felt like the worst pop instincts, just bad singing, bad rapping, and you put them together. Kind of like the way like a musical is usually bad music and a bad play, and you put them together, and then all of a sudden you have to watch both. If that keeps up, I might have to stop this video. That was quite an aggressive sound. I've been here all day listening to this album, getting ready. If it happens again, I'll cut. That's actually a nice reminder of what I like about this album, this singing and this rapping. And you know, I think maybe Drake has prepared me to be more at ease with this, or maybe even Shelly, FKA Dram. Like maybe I've just learned to expand my listening. But what he does so well, what Vince Staples does so well, is like he never really feels like when he's singing and rapping like he's trying to appeal to either people who like singing or rapping. It just feels like a very organic expression of himself. He's not really stretching himself too hard in terms of the range that he goes, but he's never trying to be like cute or charming. It's just like, these are the ways that these words are coming out of my mouth. I don't know why I said that like Chris Tucker in Rush Hour. And then we get to the production. Kenny Beats. I'm going to show you a link up here to a review I did of Kenny Beats and Denzel Curry's album, which I absolutely loved. I included in that little video essay about whiteness in hip-hop, in which I talked about the fact that hip-hop's strength, I think, partly comes from the fact that it can accommodate other cultures, but never is dominated by them. Like, it can incorporate white voices quite well, but white voices have never managed to take over. And I think that's a really good example. I said I would stop, but this video is going too well. We're gonna see. I might have to cut that out. Maybe I'll edit this video, who knows? So let me give you an example of this album, of why it's such a great album, this amazing collaboration between Kenny Beats and Vince Staples, is the song MHM. Just production-wise, it has this cool, weird beginning sound that starts like this weird sample, and then there's this nice, bouncy beat. And Kenny Beats has done something all the way throughout this album, which is subtlety. The whole album is based on subtlety. So there are like lead lines, like little keyboard blips and like keyboard lead lines, but it feels as though he's taken two comforters and put them over those lines and let these trap drum beats kind of lead and let the voice kind of lead. But when you listen carefully, you realize if they mixed it differently, every track would have some kind of really spectacular lead line that you'd get stuck in your head. And MHM is like that as well, where we have these cool like cracked sounds in the back, kind of underwater sounds, and all the way throughout little rhythmic changes that are quite cool. The chorus is wonderful, and the chorus is the title of the song, MHM. Now, I can't do it. I'm just going to edit this video together. That's the only way to do it. So the title is MHM. And the funny thing is, when I started, like, I thought I was going to have to look it up in the Urban Dictionary. I thought, like, it must be some kind of Compton slang, you know, like murder ham mob, or, I don't know, music hill murderers, or something. It turns out it's not an acronym, it's an onomatopoeia, it's just the words spelled out. And it creates something of a hook to the song. And it's one of the fairly subtle hooks that we find through the album, and just this kind of very cool, temperature cool style of Vince Staples, to where he's just rapping about But there is an inscrutable quality to his lyrics. I went to Genius and to try to understand them better, and they aren't very well annotated there. And I have to tell you, I don't know what he's saying most of the time, you know? And it's not like Ghostface Killer or something where he's just using all this totally exotic slang that I could never possibly understand. Here's an example. Chip cuz, tell him come and zip cuz. What in the world does that mean? I don't know. 100 on this headstone, homies call me rich cuz. Flip cuz, candles cuz they miss cuz. I ain't got a diss cuz you know what it is cuz. Dog ways baby cuz I'm park raised. We can do it late night, we can do it broad day. Yeah. So mixed in with all this like really cool playfulness with the these lyrics where he's playing around the word cuz as in because and as in cousin and as in because of, all these things getting kind of mixed up, and then it finally ends, this whole song ends, the whole album ends with this sort of like directions to the hood, the directions to the parts of Compton where he's from. Weirdly ironic, the vacation that I just took was to a town called Little Compton in Rhode Island, which is not like normal Compton or big Compton. It's on the ocean, it's lots of cows. It's a nice place. So let me go through the rest of the album here. Now I think the guy in the basement is making a little bit less noise. I can edit this all together. So the opens up with the track, Are You With That? Pretty interesting title, like Are You With That? I'm trying to understand what does it mean. The beat is fairly minimal, very West Coast and breezy. It's kind of cool how Kenny Beats is able to make such West Coast beats even though he's from Greenwich, Connecticut, which is actually probably a lot more like Little Compton than it is like Compton. As I said in my previous video, Greenwich, Connecticut is the saddest place I've ever been. And everyone there is a billionaire and everybody there is miserable. So I don't think money saves you from misery. And if you need evidence, just take a walk in Greenwich, Connecticut. Everyone there is very, very sad and very, very rich. Anyways, these great West Coast beats, and these lyrics are all about not being a gangster, about sort of being a wannabe gangster in the past. He has all these cool voices in the back doing these ad-libs of himself, talking to himself, and kind of funny lyrics like keep my shit off of safety, you can never be too safe. The idea that having a safety on a gun off is more safe than having a safety on a gun on. This kind of clever wordplay, funny, interesting, clever, a little bit bitter, a little bit dark, but really it's this whole theme of the album, just that he's just not a gangster and just has never been, and he's coming to terms with that. Law of Averages is the next song, a good example of that cool underwater sound that Kenny Beats has got going here. Weird kind of voice, almost even like Bon Iver-ish, like, and then like a weird gospel sounds are put in as well. There's so much going on here that it even sounds like there might be a wah pedal being used. Lyrics here are lyrics of self-conscious isolation, very much in the Drake mode, you know, like I can't love anybody because everybody just wants something from me. I don't like women, I don't like friends, I don't like family because everybody just wants alone. But it doesn't ever really feel self-pitying. A lot of this album feels as though he's commenting on his mind state, but he's not so much like suffering and sharing you the suffering. It's more sort of a weird, distanced take on his own life. The next song, Sundown Time, is where it becomes clear the stylistic continuity to the album, where we have just these great soul samples. Every song just flows so nicely one to the next. Has like almost like Kanye-ish soul sample that's pitched up, and then another sample that's like pitched down. All these cool sounds happening on the back with these trap beats way up front. Very Cali sounding bass line. I did ask myself here in the video, in my notes, is he too bored sounding? And I don't think he is. I think this is the real magic of Vince Staples, is how can you walk that line between like cool and bored, right? I don't know how he does it, but I think he really does. The next track is called The Shining, coincidentally, the name of my favorite movie. More kind of trap beats and another great example of these faraway production details. It's not... I really like the lyrics to this because in a way this album also reminds me of another classic of West Coast rap, The Good Kid, Mad City, by Kendrick Lamar. A similar kind of idea of like how crazy is your city? How crazy is it to grow up in what I call regular Compton? Don't get murdered. That's the first line of the song. And I think there's a real power to it. Just starting off a song with the words, don't get murdered. You know, like, there's a passivity in there, a sort of inability to escape, I would say. And it's just great. Don't get murdered, little mms out here with no purpose, loaded lurking, rather get flipped than go flip burgers, right? So this concept, again, of the only hope for economic security is through crime, saying it in this really nice, beautiful way. Rather get flipped than go flip burgers, cayenne swerving, ain't built like that in person, city burning, can't be saved with no sermon. And it's an interesting idea, like really this mad city that he's describing and where he is and these people. And then finally this one line that haunts me. It's a hauntingly good line. We dying broke or live with broken hearts. We're dying broke or live with broken hearts. So what does that mean? What kind of world is Vince Staples presenting to us here? So that the only way to not be broke is to be rich. And to be rich is to have a broken heart, because it comes through crime, it comes through people you know being put in jail, people you know being killed. It's an amazingly simple and strong lyric. And part of why I think, I don't know, please tell me in the comments, is Vince Staples really underrated? You know, I talk a lot about hip hop, I do these videos, but I'm not like a head, right? I'm not in the world, I'm not on Reddit/hiphopheads.net, right? Like, I'm not there. Like, does everybody know that Vince Staples is this good? Or is he so damn cool that people can't actually pick up on how good he is? And like someone like Tyler, who's a little bit more flashy, a little bit more like brand conscious and all that, is able to get it out there. Taking Trips is another very good track. Weird, just him saying trippy, trippy over and over again. Really cool sound, like this, like audio, like this harpsichord in the background, and just more kind of fun lyrics here. He actually makes a fairly strong Harry Potter reference here. Listen, I ain't going, riding foreign, riches off a tourin', call ignorin', missions, miss my brothers, die for colors, Quidditch, catching snitches, do him vicious. So I mean, I've heard Harry Potter references in hip hop before, but this very specific idea of rhyming snitches with Quidditch, and if you don't know, one of the rules of Quidditch is to catch a snitch. I was in New York City, by the way, and I tried to get into the Harry Potter store, and you need to make a reservation, which is good, because I don't really think I want to support transphobes. But anyways, it's pretty rare to know, like, for a rap artist to have the knowledge of Harry Potter, to know that the thing in Quidditch that you catch is called a snitch is pretty funny, and then to make just a real badass street line about Quidditch catching snitches. Very cool kind of sample at the end of like a little kid talking about getting wrapped up in gang life. I think it's important. I couldn't find the source of the sample. If you know, do please put it in the comments. I'll pin it and everything. It sounds like it's just from the 60s or something, saying like, I was supposed to go home, but then these guys came and they seem so cool. And it feels like this is where he's placing himself. Like, he's not a killer, he's not a wannabe gangster, he's just sort of a guy growing up in a tough place, and he gets a little bit wrapped up in this business, a little bit wrapped up in this pain and suffering, but not quite there. Next track is called The Apple and the Tree. Now, when I said this album pairs nicely with the Tyler, the Creator album, I meant it in a lot of different ways. This is a very good example. So this is a sample of Vince Staples' mom. And the odd thing is, she's talking about what she had to do to protect her family, right? She had to lie on the stand to protect Vince's father from going to jail and like tracking down the person who accused him, all that kind of stuff. And it's a, you know, listen, I'm an academic, so I can just tell you, at some point, not me, but someone is going to write an article about the changing role of mothers in hip-hop, right? In particular, of course, African-American mothers in hip-hop. They've always been a passive mention, right? Sometimes you'll hear a word here or there, or a sample here or there of their voice. But now these two albums right here, Tyler, the Creator, in which she talks about how she protected Tyler when he was a kid, okay, like track down the bullies and whoop their ass and all that. And then here, this mom taking care of business, it seems as though these mothers, often who share a lot of the parenting responsibility, majority, if not all of the parenting responsibility, depending on the case, are now actually like getting more of a voice and being more of a presence. And it's not just like, oh, mama, I caused you trouble, and oh, this. But like actually they're like these really strong figures who are behaving in a way that is like simultaneously nurturing and menacing. And I don't know, it's weird, right? These both come out within a couple weeks. These like alternative, thoughtful rappers out of the West Coast who are singing and rapping, and then they both have right in the dead center their mothers talking about protecting them. It's quite good. Take Me Home. Now the thing about, that's the next song, by the way. I'm not saying for you to take me home. I am home. I'm back from Little Compton. The drawl. This is the thing about his voice. This song kind of, I was amazed. I was listening to this song, and I realized, like, he starts off the song, and the level of drawl to his voice, you know, that like laid back talking, is at 100. But after the first verse and the first chorus, the next verse is a little bit picked up, has a little bit more pep to it. And then the next song starts off with the most pep on the entire album. That's what I'm telling you. You have to pay attention to him in degrees, okay? Like you have to see it and just know, okay, this is this guy's face and he's just staring at you. But there's something more going on here. You know, these trips come with baggage. Been crossed this atlas, but keep coming back to this place because they trapped us. I preach what I practice, these streets all know, and there's no place like home. This Wizard of Oz comparison then leads into this chorus by Fouché. Ooh, take me home like I clicked my shoes. And this whole concept of going back home, and really this album is just it appears to be a great dedication to Compton and to his conflictual relationship to his home. So then he gets more active with the second verse, and then that leads into Lil Fade, which is maybe like, sort of like in the same way that like Hot Shower kind of stands out on that Chance the Rapper album, which I defend and still say is a great album, and you're all wrong. In 5 years you'll realize that it was great. Doesn't matter. Where like this song is like so kind of like the most rap, right? Like the hardest sound, these cool kind of tic-tac, and opens up with a laugh, like a really great minimalist beat. Just a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more kind of catchy in the way that it's delivered. And, you know, it ends with this cool kind of list of people he wants freed. It's barely even a song. It doesn't quite develop like the other ones, although at the end has this cool like Italian guitar sound, and then the Jetsons, which then leads into Lakewood Mall, which is a crime story with this very interesting sample in the background that's brought up. It's some kind of soul sample that just sounds like it's in 3 other rooms way far away. A really cool sound. And then the whole song is about handling your business. It's like a crime story about somebody who managed to not get arrested. And how did he not get arrested? And that's the album. It appears as though the person downstairs has finally stopped making noise. But I'm back. I have to bring up my Patreons here. If you don't know, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Professor Sky. And I got a couple different layers there. So here's some people who've been helping me out. What I do is I go and I spend the money that you give me on new music. 100% of the money that is raised by these people here goes to me buying music. I actually went to Rough Trade Records in New York and bought some awesome music. You can see a video of me buying those albums on Patreon. So thank you very much to my Patreons for helping out. I'm gonna go turn back on the air conditioning, see what they've done in my basement, and get ready for my next video. What should it be, actually? Please tell me, because I don't know. What have I missed over the last couple weeks? All right, until next time, there's the camera.